General Majkl Flin je američki vojni oficir i bivši savjetnik za nacionalnu bezbjednost predsjednika Donalda Trumpa. Poznat je kao jedan od njegovih bliskih saradnika i stručnjak za vojnu strategiju i međunarodnu bezbjednost. Tokom svoje karijere bio uključen u brojne operacije i procese koji su oblikovali američku spoljnu politiku. U Banja Luci u sjedištu vlade Republike Srpske govorio o aktuelnoj geopolitičkoj situaciji i ratu Sjedinjenih država i Izraela protiv Irana. Naglasio je da je cilj Sjedinjenih država nije kopnena invazija na Iran, već uništavanje njegovih raketnih i mornaričkih kapaciteta. General Flin je i gost emisije Geopolitika. General Flin, welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Davor. Appreciate you having me. This is great.
So there is no better guest for us to talk about this current subject, the U.S.-Israel war against Iran. Now, you are a military expert. You were a person from the inside. You know how these things develop and plan and work. What are we witnessing here? Is this history in the making? Are we closer to permanent peace in the Middle East, or is this thing going to escalate?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, first of all, I'm honored to be here with you, and I will go quickly on an answer, but I need to set the stage a bit because I don't, I'm not speaking for the U.S. government.
Sure.
So I'm here as a private citizen, and we are here in Srpska and Banja Luka to do a couple of things. One is to myself and the delegation I'm with, we were invited here, and we are honored that we got invited to Banja Luka by the government here, and we had a great day today talking about future opportunities that we can mutually share. So the situation in the Middle East, again, we're back in the United States of America is back in a big way. And that's clear, it's obvious, and I think everybody in the world is paying very close attention to it because it does, it changes the dynamics of not just the regional politics and the regional actors inside the Middle East, but it changes the dynamics of the world because it affects everything from the price of oil and a whole range of issues that all of us have to deal with, that you have to deal with right here in Srpska, in the Republic of Srpska. So far, the United States of America, our Secretary of War, Secretary Hegseth, and our President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, they have set a series of objectives. So those objectives are very clear. And I think these objectives, once achieved, that will signal that the United States is coming to an end. People asked me earlier today in another forum that I was in, should we expect boots on the ground or military forces? Well, we have military forces there now. I don't expect any type of what that means, what that connotes, right? The idea of boots on the ground. I don't expect that, not one bit. The objectives that were laid out by the Trump administration was to destroy the capability and the capacity of Iran's ballistic missile systems, weapon systems. They have thousands of them, and they have used them against not only Israel, but they've used them against U.S. forces in the region, even before we got involved. So most people think that this all just started with Iran, a couple of days ago. Iran has been killing Americans for a long, long time. The Beirut barracks, it was 241 people were killed by a suicide bomber that came in from, that was an Iranian-backed surrogate, in Hezbollah. So Khobar Towers, 605 Americans killed in Iraq, and we weren't attacking Iran at that time, but Iran was responsible for the death of 605 U.S. soldiers in Iraq. So this has been going on a long time. So the first objective is destroy that missile capability. The second objective basically is to take out the Navy, the naval forces in the Persian Gulf, and you have a map up there that people can look at the Persian Gulf. The Iranian Navy for decades, and I'm very familiar with this because I used to be the head of intelligence for the command that is running the war right now from the military side, the U.S. Central Command. So the Persian Gulf Iranian Navy, both IRGC Navy and their conventional Navy, they would run many times these boats with these bombs on the backs of them right out at U.S. naval forces out there. And all the U.S. Navy was doing was securing the passageway principally between the Persian Gulf, and we're always in international waters unless we were invited in by some of the other regional partners, and securing the passageway through the Straits of Hormuz. So that's the second big objective, is to get rid of that Navy, because that Navy has been for decades, not just in the last couple of days here, that Navy has been a threat to maritime, to a free flow of maritime and commercial activities in the Persian Gulf and through the Straits of Hormuz. To your audience that's paying attention, that might be, because I know the Chinese have a lot of activities here in this part of the world. The Chinese know, and this is why the Chinese, China has been, they've made some statements about the war, but China's majority of their oil right now comes through the Straits of Hormuz. So China doesn't want Iran to shut the Straits down. We don't want to shut the Straits down, because what it does is it maintains oil at a reasonable price, even though the prices have gone up. So that's the second objective that has been stated, and that's the destruction of the Navy. The third objective that was stated by our Secretary of War and the President was basically the elimination of any ability for Iran to have a nuclear capability. And we did that early on in support of the Israeli attack back in the 12-day war. But now we're at a point where we cannot have a regime like Iran, and they had every opportunity. President Trump and his team gave every opportunity for the regime in Iran to basically accept a set of conditions that would have allowed them to probably stay in power.
Yes, there were negotiations just days before the operation. The President envoy, Steve Witkoff, was with the Iranian officials. They were discussing, and we also heard signals that there could be some kind of agreement. So did this all come as a surprise to you, given the statements, previous statements by President Trump, that he was not willing to wage large-scale wars? So
yeah. So to answer your question directly, no, it was not a surprise to me. Having watched the Iranian regime for a long time, many years, and many of these other countries as well, when they get into these negotiations, every time there would be some type of talk, whether it was in Geneva or Brussels or Oman or wherever the talks were, they always wanted, you would come out of them not satisfied. And then what you would do, and the world would know it, particularly the Iranian foreign ministers in the past, the current and in the past, they would always delay. They would ask for another 2 weeks, or ask for some other set of conditions, right? They'd always go back and forth. And what I want people to know, this is, again, I'm speaking for myself, is that President Donald J. Trump he's a different kind of politician. He's not he's a leader, and he's looking at, creating conditions for peace. And Iran was not moving in that direction. Iran was actually creating an umbrella of a ballistic missile capability that can actually range, in some cases, the southern part of Europe, right? I mean, they fired at 2 United Kingdom bases in Cyprus, right? They hit 2 bases. So far, they've hit 14 countries. Those ballistic missiles have, either the ballistic missiles or drones have hit at least 14 countries now in the region, to include airfields, military bases, international airports. I guess they hit Dubai International Airport here in the last 24 hours. So this threat of this umbrella of these ballistic missiles, which are very powerful weapons, what they were doing is, underneath that, they were returning to build their nuclear capability back. Right. And we just can't have that from an American perspective, with a regime that sits there and has for years said, death to America. And they have demonstrated that by killing U.S. military and by killing U.S. civilians that are overseas just trying to do their jobs, right? Trying to be in a peaceful position. And the Iranian regime, they're not, that's not their character. It's not in their character. And it's a shame. And I think right now, I am very much in support of the protesters. I do believe that the sacrifices that they're making, the numbers of protesters that have been killed are anywhere from, I've seen numbers like 80,000, I've seen numbers like 30,000. We don't know. I don't know. I'm just looking at what everybody else is seeing. But I will tell you that the people on the ground, they have had it.
So you think there is a critical mass in Iran?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have major protests in most of the cities of Iran, well before we got involved, the young people, particularly the young people, and it's the women, it's young men, it's the advent of social media, even though social media is not necessarily, as open in Iran as it is, but they still have access to it. They've had enough. They've had enough of the type of frankly, I think the very brutal treatment that they have experienced for a long time under the Ayatollah.
Well, we've seen the action in the first days. It was really powerful. It was really on a large scale, and it looks like it was meticulously planned. How long does it take to plan such an action? We know that the U.S. have all kinds of military bases in the region, and
sure,
they're very present. But we've seen in the first days that they've attacked in the broad daylight the meeting with basically every important person at that time, sure, in Iran, killing the Ayatollah, killing the many ministers in the government. So it seems that it is really, really well planned. The intelligence worked very well. Yeah. So how long did it take to plan it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think what it demonstrates is it demonstrates for people that are watching this on TV, on this show, it demonstrates a level of precision and lethality and real serious planning. And so how long does it take to plan? It's taken, in some cases, decades, okay? Certainly years. So this level and scale, and as President Trump said, I think a day or two ago, they haven't seen the capabilities that we can bring to bear, right? So this has been in planning stages for years, okay? Particularly the meticulous, detailed intelligence work that is both from on the ground, in space, the world of cyber. So all these different things, that doesn't happen over a weekend. So this has been going on for a long time, because that's what the military does. The military has plans constantly, and as a military guy, we pray, we hope that we never have to execute any of them. I've said very publicly that I am anti-war, but what I really am is I'm anti-stupid war. Right. And any nation that threatens the survival of the United States of America or our national security interests, which are broad, and with a president like President Donald J. Trump, even though I know back in the United States there's a lot of teeth gnashing, but I'm going to tell you that he made the right decision at this stage, because we just cannot have a dictatorship, a regime, whatever you want to call it, a tyrant government act the way they act towards the American people.
What's interesting in President's statements and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth's statements early on, is that they are very public about the U.S. casualties, mm-hmm, and they also stated that they could expect more. How does that relate to the U.S. Public, given this moment in U.S. politics, the closing of the midterm elections? Mm-hmm. Can that have any influence on President's popularity in the U.S.?
Sure, and all deaths are tragic in war, particularly those who serve our nation in uniform, and because they're there because of our political leadership. They're there because of maybe some cases diplomacy that doesn't go the right way. So So, you know, my hat's off to every man and woman who serves in the United States military for what they're doing and the bravery and the sacrifice that they give, and their families that are back home. You know, your bigger question is will this impact on the midterm elections, which are coming up in the November timeframe? We are in the throes, or we began today in the United States, our primaries.
Right.
So we have elections going on in Texas, our state of Texas, state of North Carolina, and the state of Arkansas. So we're all paying attention to these. We're going to be able to tell from these primaries the sentiment of the American people. And I can tell you that the sentiment of the American people, you know, and again, I'm going to speak for myself, but I have a good, what I call a fingertip feel for the way the American people feel right now. And they have had enough of the political class that has, and again, speaking as an American, that has really worked hard to almost destroy our country in many ways, right? The corruption, the greed, right? The over-bureaucracy of our federal government, particularly our federal government. So a lot of that happens. We're dealing with that at home. You see it here, not only in this region, you see it all over Europe. I mean, you know, I won't get into all the sort of the philosophical debate about it, but the American people are in a place right now where we want change, and Donald Trump was that sort of agent of change the first time when he was first elected, and then and we saw what happened during that first administration, and I was a direct part of that. You know, the whole Russiagate, the Trump leaves office on you know, what we do believe, when we now know is a stolen election in 2020, and on and on and on. So we could spend hours talking about that.
So is there an estimate of how long this operation might last? Can this turn into a new Afghanistan? And how much strain does this cause to your defense budget, to your army budget? How long can you last in this tempo?
Yeah. So our economic, financial, political, military strength is it's not bottomless, right? It's not unlimited.
Right.
But going into an operation like this, I guarantee that the President of the United States was fully briefed on the limitations of capabilities, right, that we have. Your question about is how long will this go on, right? So I would sit here and tell you that it will go on for a long time. You know, so how long is it? A long time. It could go on for another few years if you are looking at it from the perspective of diplomatic work, economic work, some intelligence work, to make sure that what is happening in Iran, because if the regime does collapse, and President Trump has already said that there are many people in Iran that are already, you know, they're giving up. There's many in the military that are starting to come in, and they're looking for some type of not asylum, but some type of way to get out of trouble, right? So there will be a continuation of support to any new government that comes in, right? I mean, especially if the protesters on the ground are able to come to grips with whoever their new leader is going to be. That's the difficulty for where they're at. We didn't create these conditions. The people in Iran created these conditions. So the Iranian people rose up against their own government. And historically, our own country, the United States of America, we did that early on in the beginning of our country, where we rose against the British crown at that time. So the people of Iran, they want change.
So you think there's a chance of having an Iranian government without the Ayatollahs?
I do.
And mullah?
Well, it's definitely not without the Ayatollah, because he's dead.
Another one.
Yeah, but the second guy that came in, he's dead. So I think what the people of Iran want is they want change. They want to be part of the world economic system. They want to be free, particularly women. I think women in the Iranian government, they're one of the loudest voices, especially young women. So yeah, I mean, this is a time where the Iranian people have to decide, and those that are still in power, that are still firing weapon systems against, like I just said, 14 nations have been hit Many of them are Muslim nations.
Yeah,
most of them are Muslim
and
nations.
some of them mentioned that they might respond by sending aircrafts to Iran.
Sure.
Is that possible?
Yeah, I saw where I guess the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was considering that.
Sure.
I saw that. Yeah, absolutely, because they can't have, in this case, a regional, partner who is also a Muslim nation, that, in some kind of war right now against each other. I mean, if they want to show a coherent strategy, then they're going to have to figure out how to work together, particularly in that region. And I think this is what a lot of people don't understand, is that, the culture of Iran is really a Persian culture. And there's a lot of meaning to what I just said. So it's not just this pure Shia-based tyrannical government that has been in power since 1979. And I got all the well, the U.S. has been involved in all this stuff. Yeah, because we're trying to actually help the world, and this includes China. Okay, China, I think it's 40% of oil that comes out of the Middle East, or about 40% of the oil that comes out of the Middle East goes to China. That's why the Straits of Hormuz can't close. It's not because the U.S. wants to keep it open. We can take care of our own energy needs in our own country. We're actually supporting, in this case, China. So that's what people need to understand. This is not, an East versus West anymore. This is about sanity and insanity, and the insanity by the regime in Iran has been very dangerous to not just the region, but to the world.
So do you expect any reactions by those countries that actually had some trade relations with Iran, like China or others, to interfere differently?
Yeah, I mean, they've had statements. China has made some statements. Russia has made some statements, but they're I think that they have actually, as I looked at them, and it's been a couple of days, they are generally reasonable, and I would just leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Meaning that they're basically saying, we don't appreciate what's going on, and that's it. Because they know that this is not a fight that they want to be part of, and frankly, China this is a big risk to China to get involved, because China absolutely depends on, I don't know if you can put that flag back up, but China absolutely believes in that, they need the Persian Gulf. They need the free flow of oil through the Persian Gulf, and the country that guarantees the free flow of oil through the Persian Gulf is the United States of America, and has been for 40 years.
How do you see Israel's role in this operation? Some critics say that the U.S. is too submissive to Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think Israel's role has been substantial. You could use the word monumental. Right. Particularly the precision of their intelligence work, I think, just really shows. My hat's off to the Israeli government and their intelligence work by both their military and of course, their civilian intelligence capabilities. And that really goes back to a number of things. And people can argue about all these different issues that are going on in the Levant region of where Israel is at. Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and Gaza and even parts of Egypt. That's been in play, but this is all fomented by Iran. The surrogates of Iran is Hamas, Hezbollah. And I don't want to forget those in the south, in Yemen, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Right. We call them rebels. These guys had very sophisticated ballistic missile capabilities that the Iranians were given to Yemen. And as a reminder, the Yemeni rebels, the Houthi rebels, actually were firing ballistic missiles and running very dangerous drones at our naval vessels in the Arabian Sea to try to sink our Navy. And all we were doing was we're continuing to have the free flow of not just oil, but commercial traffic from Africa, right, the Red Sea, the Middle East, and all the way over to the South Asian Peninsula.
The Houthis, how strong are the other Iran's proxies right now, like Hezbollah?
Hezbollah, yeah. Hezbollah has been weakened quite a bit, their leadership, but I would say that they're still, they still have a formidable terrorist kind of capability. What I am concerned about, to stretch your question a little bit, it's not just so much because we tend to think they're over there, okay? So the battlefield for the world right now, and it's principally because of these surrogates, the battlefield is global. So you have the alert levels, even in our country, we just had an attack at a club in the capital of the state of Texas, right, just a few nights ago, by an Iranian terrorist, essentially. So, and he killed a couple of young people and wounded like 14 others. I mean, and he did it on behalf of Iran. So how many more of these, we call them sleeper cells, right? So it's not just in the sub-region of the Levant, Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, it's the whole gamut. I mean, and this has got to stop. So I'm telling so as I speak to, and again, as a guy's experience, as I speak to the rest of the world here, let's figure out how to work with the United States of America and President Donald J. Trump, who's trying to create conditions for world peace. I mean, he's, like he says, he stopped 8 wars, right? And yet Iran continued to be very aggressive in the region, very aggressive over in our hemisphere, inside the United States, and certainly working with the cartels in Venezuela. So we know that they work with the cartel in Venezuela, and they've been doing some bad things over in our hemisphere. So this has to stop.
You mentioned the danger of the sleeper cells, and you mentioned earlier during your talk in the government of Republika Srpska, threats of Islamization and so on. Well, what's interesting is, first, Republika Srpska is a staunch supporter of Israel, very good excellent relationship with
I think for America, too. I think I see you as a staunch supporter of Israel.
Sure, with the new administration, yes.
Sure.
And what's interesting, the same things that you mentioned, Republika Srpska's leaders have been saying since basically the creation of Republika Srpska. Yet, the U.S. treated us, the Serbs, as enemies for a long time.
Yeah.
Can there be any substantial change in the mentality of the U.S. Political establishment?
Yeah. So, and I'll try to be brief to answer your question here. So the answer is yes, right, to be very brief. The world is moving in a different direction. And I gave a talk this morning here, in town here to a group of primarily young people, which I appreciated. And because I like to talk to young people because they're really the future. But what I see happening is there are new models that must be reviewed and examined. And so a model of political development, right? Models that exist, like European Union, NATO, right? The Dayton Accords. I mean, these that you guys live under. All of these different models. There's APEC. There's different things in the Asia-Pacific theater. So there's these models, these political models that were designed for a different time. Now, it doesn't mean that we throw them all out, but it means that, to me, I strongly believe, and certainly from a U.S. perspective, and I encourage this through my institute. We have the Gold Institute for International Strategy. We encourage this. We encourage this type of debate. We encourage this type of conversation to examine the old models, look at what's working and look at what's not, and let's start considering and maybe developing new models of how we should live and work together, right? Because the tension that exists in the current set of models that we have, it's obviously not working. For the 47th president of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump, to have to come into office, and he's trying to stop wars everywhere, and he did an amazing job of that, right? And yet we still have, in the case of Iran and other parts of the world, but certainly in the case of Iran, they keep saying death to America. I mean, what did we do to them? Right? I mean, in this case, as we look at, why don't we figure out a different way to operate together, right?
Well, how do you see the future of your allies? It's a fact that United Nations as an organization basically became somewhat obsolete, not very influential. But how do you see support from NATO allies? You are very critical about the European Union. and their political decisions. So we are seeing that U.S. is doing basically their own moves without any regard to or waiting for the allies to have their own opinion. Does that mean that the U.S. doesn't believe in NATO anymore?
No, the U.S. completely. I mean, we pay for most of NATO.
Right.
Okay, so let's get that point on the table here. NATO wouldn't exist without the United States of America, not only in terms of the leadership to keep it together, but the financial support to maintain it. Trump is really the only president in the United States history since the creation of NATO that got them to start paying their bills. Right? I mean, so many of these countries paid nothing for decades, right? But they wanted all of the security that NATO provided. The one thing about NATO, to remind everybody, NATO is a defensive chartered organization. They are not an offensive capability. But if somebody is attacked, then one attacked, all attacked, and we respond to that attack, right? So that's important for people to understand. The United Nations. So I think it was 2 days ago, and I forget exactly which leader out of the United Nations made a speech to say to the world that the United Nations is in default. Right. So they can't even afford to do what they're doing. And again, this is because of, to me, I believe, this is Mike Flynn speaking, because of the severe level of corruption that is in that organization. And again, the United States of America pays a big bill to the United Nations. Never mind where they physically are in New York City as the headquarters, but we put a lot of money into the United Nations, and they just declared default, meaning they can't pay their bills. So, this idea of what was created in the 20th century, and here we are in the third decade of the 21st century, and I'm sitting here and I'm watching the world, and this is my business, is national security, international security, and just the idea, the issues of statecraft and some of the other things that we deal with. We must start looking and examining new models for the way the world is going to have to work together, because there's so many dynamic changes that are going on. And I spoke about some of them earlier today, about this dynamic that's really taken place in Europe. Complete change, almost a reversal of what we saw only maybe 30 years ago. Right. And so that sort of issue is a big deal. Last point and I'll stop here. Our own hemisphere. So the United States of America is in the essentially the American hemisphere, right? North America, Central America, South America. So we are, because we have to, we are paying far more attention to that, and for good reason, for real good reason, and because what we have felt over certainly the last 4 years, if not the last probably 40, we have felt this surge of illegals coming into the United States of America underneath these very liberal leaders that we have on the left in America, where they just open up the borders as though you don't have a sovereign country. When that happens, so who is behind that? Well, I can tell you that Iran has a piece of that. Certainly the drug cartels. China has a piece of that. Okay, so China's been directly involved in that. So again, whoever the audience is that's watching this show, what I'm telling you is that we have a president of the United States of America in Donald J. Trump, because the American people have said enough is enough. And so we are going to protect our way of life. We are going to protect our nation. And if that means that we have to sort of, like what we used to say in the military, if we have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here at home, that's what we're going to do. And I think that's where President Trump has taken us. And I'm mixed. I'm mixed about it all, because I feel like I served 5 years in combat, not just 34 years in the military, but 5 years in direct combat operations in different parts of the world. So I know war, and I don't like it, and it's not good for anybody. And so if you can't come to a table and have a reasonable debate and figure out a solution, then why are you in those jobs? Why are you a diplomat? Why are you a foreign minister, right? Because if you can't figure out a solution, and it is a give and take, it's not a winner takes all like you do in warfare sometimes, right?
Okay, so let's wrap up with your short message to our audience, to the people of Republika Srpska. What can we expect from the relations between Republika Srpska and the United States? Can we expect more economic cooperation?
Yeah, definitely. And that's part of the reason why I'm here, too, is to open some doors for economic development, because I do believe that we can avoid and deter a conflict by strengthening the economic development and the sort of the commercial side, because where there is great economic development, the leaders that make decisions tend to say, well, we don't want to hurt that, so let's work together, because we're going to work on building things, right? Building bridges instead of creating divides, right? So that's partly why we're here, and to strengthen the relationship. I think we recently we hosted former President Dodik over in the United States, and he came over for the prayer breakfast, which was it was an honor to host him over in the United States, and that's why we're here. We had a nice invite, and so we took advantage of it, and we have some great opportunities to create what we believe will be a element of something that I'm a chairman of, which is the Gold Institute here in the Republic of Srpska. We want to do that because it opens up the door to Europe, and we already have 12 countries that are represented from Europe that are represented in our institute. So we're an international organization, and with that, we also try to promote economic development.
Well, General, I thank you for your time and the explanation of the current situation.
Thank you, Davor. Appreciate it.
Poštovani gledalci, ujedno to bi bilo sve u prvom izdanju emisije Geopolitika na Radio-televiziji Republike Srpske. Hvala vam za pažnju. Ostanite uz naš